Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Rachel Whitney. I'm the research assistant on the Registered Nurses in Primary Care Grant Initiative. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with RNPC, part of the initiative includes facilitating clinical experiences at the VA, the Wyoming VA community-based outpatient clinic. We also call it the CBAC. Some of you students may have already been to clinicals there. This amazing facility provides care for our military veterans in West Michigan and actually across the state. So, as you may know, mental health and wellness is a prevalent topic for the veteran healthcare community. According to the National Council for Behavioral Health, 30% of active duty and reserve military personnel deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan have mental health conditions requiring treatment. This translates to approximately 730,000 men and women. Less than 50% of returning veterans in need of care receive it, so the number is actually quite a bit higher. And the Veterans Administration reports that approximately 22 veterans die by suicide every day. Although these statistics can be disheartening, there is hope. When Sergeant Travis Snyder embarked on an 810-mile hike around Lake Michigan on August 26, 2019, his goal was to raise awareness around veteran suicide. Travis said that if he impacted even one person, the journey would be worthwhile, but he had no idea just how many lives he would reach. It took Travis 6 weeks to complete his journey, but that was just the beginning. Since October, Travis has shared his experiences with federal and state legislatures and at a Marine Corps League conference. Through numerous news and podcasts interviews, some of you may have seen some of those, and even with a classroom of 5th grade students in Wisconsin via FaceTime. He has received inquiries from Facebook, Expedia, The Amazing Race, Ellen, and The Today Show, and now he's here to share with us. So on behalf of Davenport University and the RNPC team, I am honored to welcome Sergeant Travis Snyder.
Can you all hear me? Is this on? Okay. Thank you all for coming today and for letting me share my story with you. As Rachel said, I've had the opportunity to share this adventure and the results with so many people the last few months, and it's been so much fun. And I'm looking forward to sharing it further in the next several months as well. She had mentioned the Marine Corps League conference I was at a couple months ago, and that crowd was mostly, of course, old veterans. Always a lot of fun to hang out with. There's no filter, all kinds of stories shared between us. And I got there to the event, and I was greeted by an older couple. And this little old lady comes up to me, and she's like, "Are you the young man that walked around Lake Michigan?" And of course I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." To which she replied, "You know, you're shorter than I thought you'd be." And to which I laughed, of course. I said, "No, this is all God gave me." But as Rachel said, my name is Travis Snyder. I served in the Marine Corps from 2012 to 2018 for 6 years. Actually, the 124 Alpha Company here in Grand Rapids. I enlisted at age 24 at a period of time where I was kind of looking for a little more direction, a good kick in the rear, so to speak. I was looking for a good challenge, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. And I certainly received that during my time in. Our last year in, during my time in, we were activated and sent to Afghanistan, down to the Helmand province, where our primary objective was to train, advise, and assist the Afghan army in their efforts against the Taliban forces. I'm a native of Holland, not too far from here at all, and I'm also an ambassador for the Mission 22 organization, which we'll talk more about towards the end of the presentation. So why am I here? On August 26th, I embarked on a 6-week journey around Lake Michigan on foot, 810 miles. Started in Manistee, where I was living at the time, and hit up checkpoints such as the Mackinac Bridge, actually on Labor Day, so I could walk across with everybody else. Went across the UP, down to Green Bay, Milwaukee, Chicago, good old Gary, Indiana, and then back through Holland and all along the West Coast, back to Manistee. Why did I walk? Why did I walk all those miles? So it's this number fluctuates, but it's estimated that on average 22 veteran brothers and sisters are lost every day to suicide. And suicide itself, it does not know race, it doesn't know gender, it doesn't know political affiliation or financial status or age. It doesn't matter where your background came from or where you were born and raised. It affects all of us one way or another. And it was one of those things that I was reading about every day in the news, social media, just veterans taking their lives every single day. And it was something that was kind of swelling within me over time and that I felt frustrated about because I wanted to do something about it. I just didn't know what that was. I had that desire in me kind of brewing, but up until this point, it was just a matter of trying to figure out how can I make a difference with that epidemic. Many veterans out there don't know and aren't fully aware of the resources that are available to them, and those are some things that we'll talk about towards the end of the presentation as well. And a lot of veterans also struggle with opening up about their mental health challenges. Going through, all kinds of training exercises, and throughout your time in the military, you're taught to, have this tough exterior and to kind of work and adapt and overcome through every challenge that comes your way. And that includes mental health challenges as well. Granted, we live in a time now where it's more acceptable and encouraged to open up about your mental health challenges and these things that you're working through. But for many veterans out there, especially in generations before mine, they're still bottling up a lot of things that they've been dealing with for decades and whatnot. And many veteran families also struggle with the loss of their loved ones. I've met so many, even since the walk, met so many families, mostly mothers, that are still struggling with the loss of their sons that took their own lives, and daughters as well, of course, that took their own lives and or were struggling and are still struggling today with PTSD, depression, and all kinds of mental health challenges. And also, I wanted to dedicate this walk to the memory of my good buddy, Sergeant Jeffrey Hughes. Jeff was actually attached to our unit halfway through the training period before our deployment. He was from Oregon and great Marine. He knew his Marines very well, knew his job very well, cared about his job, cared about his Marines. And we were actually suite mates down in Camp Lejeune before we deployed overseas. And if I'm being honest, I would have never have guessed that he was struggling with mental health. And I wish I would have known because I would have been able to reach out and try to work with him. But for a lot of my 124 brethren and it was a shock to all of us when we received the news that he had taken his own life. It was a wake-up call for us to check in on each other and to genuinely ask each other and listen and make sure that we were all pulling each other up if we were struggling at all. So this endeavor, this mission that I gave myself was kind of a three-part mission. The first part of that mission was to those that were struggling with suicide. I wanted those people to know that if you're struggling with suicide, you are not alone. No matter who you are, you have a purpose in this world, a reason to stay, a reason to be here. You have something to offer the community if you're willing to just dig down deep and find your way and reach out to somebody and talk about your challenges. You don't have to hide behind a wall emotionally and just bottle up yourself. If you're willing to meet somebody halfway, there's people out there in the community out there willing to help you through your darkest moments. The second part of that mission was to those who had lost somebody that they loved dearly to suicide. I want them to know that they have a platform and a community of people that are here ready to help them grieve. It's okay to hurt, but it's also okay to move forward and face that void left behind. It doesn't mean that you've forgotten that person that you loved and cared about, but you can use your pain to help somebody else when they encounter that same season of loss. The third part of that mission was to those that can't necessarily empathize with the epidemic or can't necessarily empathize with suicide or depression. I wanted them to know that if they're willing to try, that just by being a decent human being and doing the small things each and every day can make a huge difference in changing the course of somebody's life. Somebody could have been, just a step or two away from taking that final step to suicide, but had, you not reached out and maybe a wave or a hello or, hey, how have you been? It goes a long way, and it's not to be underestimated that act of kindness can change the course of not just that person's life, but also the course of the person who would have had to face that void left behind had they lost, their son, their daughter, their brother, their sister, so on and so forth. So with that said, it's important that we take the time to help and look out for one another, as well as ourselves, of course. I can say with confidence that most of us are probably on social media, and we see every day, the crap that's out there. It's just a lot of arguing, fighting, and just a lot of bickering about all kinds of topics, from politics, religion, coronavirus. And it's not always easy to invest time and energy into other people when we're trying to build our own careers, raise our own families, and pursue our own dreams, like many of you students here today. But it's vital that we take every opportunity that we can, no matter how great or small, to invest in the mental and emotional health of others, and our own as well. Like I said, we can only give so much before we realize that we need to fill and refuel our own tanks. So, with that said, what does refueling the tank look like to you? Is it diet? Is it exercise? Is it reading, writing? Is it a hobby? Is it family time? Is it getting outside, like myself, obviously? But whatever your way of refueling yourself and showing yourself some self-love is, it is so important that you do that each and every day. Don't skip out on taking care of yourself. So, preparing for this trip, kind of painting a picture of what I was going through before this endeavor. I had moved up to Manistee after my time in Afghanistan. I wanted to start over somewhere a little bit quieter, a little smaller, try something different. And if I'm being honest and transparent, I didn't move up there for a girl. and started working, and the plan was just kind of start all over again and just kind of take off from there. And if I'm being honest, things didn't quite work out the way I hoped they would after a year or so. So with that being the case, I was prepared to move back to Holland, where I'm from originally. I want to be close to family, close to friends, and then kind of hit the reset button and start all over again, go back to school, find a new job and just, carry on, adapt and overcome, so to speak. So I found myself in this little transitional season where I had some free time. I wasn't tied down to anything. I had the means to do some traveling. So I kid you not, it was within a matter of minutes, I was walking around Manistee, doing some hiking, and I thought to myself, I need to do some traveling. Maybe I'll take a backpacking trip. Maybe I'll go to the UP. I keep telling myself I need to go to Pictured Rocks every year, and I never do it. Maybe I'll just go around the whole lake. And it was, I kid you not, like that, it came to me, and it was never a matter of can I handle it? Can I do it? What if it doesn't work out? I just got amped up and excited. I'm by myself, just getting amped up about this. I have to do this. So to make that happen, I had to, there were some things in the natural that had to take place. I had to pass off my apartment, make sure I'm not paying for something I was going to stay at. Sold my Jeep so I could fund the trip myself. I didn't ask anybody for any help at all initially. And then I even told some friends and family, and I kind of got the little golf clap, when I told them what I was going to do. Oh, that's cute. Good for you, And I don't blame them, because it is a big endeavor. It's a big adventure, and it's easy for someone to say, you know what, I'm going to walk around Lake Michigan, and kind of just forget about it and hope that no one noticed that I never left. But I was determined, and I was passionate about doing this trip and whatnot. So I made a little Facebook page, and set up a GoFundMe, because a few friends were like, what if you want to chip in, a few bucks in there for lunch or a meal? And I said, yeah, that'd be great, I appreciate it. I set it down to the bare minimum of $100, I think. And then set up the Facebook page, and like Rachel mentioned before, if I reached out to one person and affected them in a positive way, I would have been happy with that, But thanks to the power of social media and the news and word of mouth, so many people kind of latched onto this adventure, and it kind of snowballed from there. And that just kind of goes to show you speaks volume about the magnitude of the effect of suicide and what it has on our community. So it might be foolish to some of you or most of you, but I didn't do much detailed planning for this trip. Like I said, I sold the Jeep, kind of packed up my stuff to get ready to move to Holland, and then the plan was just to camp out every single night. I kind of loosely pinpointed towns along the way that I would stop at and hopefully find a hotel or find somewhere to camp out. I had my hammock, I had a tarp, I had rain gear. I was going to journal every day and kind of just chronicle, my endeavor. But because of the power of word of mouth and social media, people reached out every day to say, hey, look, we live in this town, we've got a friend in this town, you want to stay with us, can we buy you a hotel, can we support you, what can we do for you? And everything came together and into place like perfectly, and even today, this day, I'm still in awe over like how well everything came together and pieced itself together. I didn't have to worry about a single thing on this trip, and I'm so grateful and thankful for the many people that latched on and were willing to kind of contribute to the cause in their own way. So this was my first week. Left Manistee. It was a quiet morning. It was a gorgeous morning, as you can see. A few friends and I, we got some breakfast at my favorite spot in town. And then they dropped me off at the local Meijer, and there's no grand send-off, no parade, no nothing. Didn't really tell anybody. It was nothing huge. It was just like, well, see you later. All right, see you guys, see you in 6 weeks. And just kind of started walking, just nonchalantly, just kind of cruising. So like anybody in Manistee who saw me leaving that morning, they reach out to me now or after the trip. They're like, yeah, I saw you walking that day, and we wondered what you were doing, but we didn't stop to say hi or anything like that. Because I have this big pack on my back, of course, so it's natural that people are like, who's this guy? Like, what is he doing? So, so this is my first week. There was some couple longer days in there, like the first day right off the bat was 30 miles. Traverse City, Elk Rapids, Charlevoix, Petoskey, one of my favorite spots on the trip, gorgeous. For anybody who hasn't visited like northern Michigan, I tell you what, the lake up there, you see blue and green water. It's none of this, not to speak ill of West Michigan, but like the water up there, it's a different shade of blue and green. It's gorgeous. The scenery is amazing, and I need to go visit again, honestly, because it was quite a scene. Stopped in Pellston, and then made it to Mackinac City by the end of the first week. That was one goal that I did have, was to make it to Mackinac City. The reason being that day 8 was Labor Day. And as some of you might know, Labor Day is the one and only day out of the whole year that you can walk across the Mackinac Bridge. So I was able to get to Mackinac the night before and kind of relax, and then walk across everybody else. As I was saying, a lot of people were coming out to kind of share their story and show their support one way or another. The joke that I make is that a lot of people on social media are kind of playing Where's Waldo with Travis. I had posted my intentional route, and so people would come out and say, hey, we want to say hi, we wanted to, show you some support, whether financially or food, drinks. The day I walked to Charlevoix, this little old man came out in his car, and he packed me a sack lunch with banana and donuts and a little iced tea, and it was the coolest thing. But there were just so many people out there that wanted to come out and just share their story and talk about either their struggle with suicide or somebody that they knew or cared about, or just swap some military stories and whatnot. It was a lot of fun and a lot of good times. Another common thing too was a lot of honks, people honking because they saw the pack and knew what I was doing. And I think I counted the day I walked to Charlevoix, 35 honks, something like that, and then 15 stops between people. And that was one thing I didn't anticipate either. Was I planned out roughly how much time it was going to take me each day to walk to my destination, because I was going about 3 miles per hour. But on some days, I didn't anticipate how many stops were going to be made that day from people trying to say hi and whatnot, which I appreciated and I'm so grateful for. But thank God it was still summertime, because I had sunlight until about 9 o'clock instead of 6. But so with that said, as I mentioned before, there was a lot of veterans from all generations coming out to share support. Guys my age, even younger. A majority were somewhat older, and as I'll say, seasoned veterans from the Vietnam era, World War II even, Desert Storm. And I would say the moment that I realized the magnitude of this adventure was that same day walking to Charlevoix. It was about 8, 9 p.m. towards the end of the day. The sun's setting, gorgeous scenery. There's just open fields, and a couple pulls off to the side of the road, and the wife kind of sat back by the car, and the gentleman comes out, and about 75, 80 years old, Vietnam vet, and he's 6'4", 6'5", and of course I'm 5'5", short guy with a pack on. Just comes up to me, bawling his eyes out, just gives me a big, big bear hug. And he's crying, and he's just wants to tell me about his struggles he's been facing for decades with suicide. And for so long, he wasn't able to talk about what he was going through because, as many of you know, our history, the guys that came home from Vietnam didn't receive the same kind of love and welcome home party that we get now. They were shoved, they were spit on, they couldn't find jobs. Some of their own families deserted them. And so many of them, even today, are still struggling with those lost connections that they have. So with that said, I have such a reverence in my heart for generations that served before I did. Oops. And because, like I said, they had different challenges that they faced in their period of time. We have technology now. Granted, there are challenges that we face. Like when I was in Afghanistan, we took our fair share of combat and nerve-wracking situations, but that was a different period of time, and those men and women that served in World War II, Vietnam, Desert Storm, and so on and so forth, they faced their fair share of challenges that I will never be able to fathom or comprehend or experience myself. And so I always feel it's important to show them that reverence and whatnot. So gentlemen like the one I just mentioned, just a key example of that. So as I mentioned, the first notable checkpoint that I had was the Mackinac Bridge. It was a chilly morning, and the intention was to walk across the bridge, do the 5 miles, and take off the rest of the day to enjoy the island. Met so many cool people on the walk, that 5-mile walk. And for anybody who's done the walk before, you'll know that there's so many people out there that are proud bridge walkers. They have their own homemade vests and patches and pins and shirts and whatnot. It was kind of cool, and they will tell you all kinds of stories, like back in '72 when I walked the bridge. We didn't have social media to document it, but it was just such a fun day. It was really cool to see all that. Yeah, this was my first little crap moment. So leading up to that first week, there was a lot of love and support shown out on the road, and I was so grateful for it. By the time I got to the UP, things had changed. Like I said, I did a lot of loose planning. I didn't know where I was going to eat, where I was going to sleep. And at this point, I was still anticipating camping out, looking for spots to kind of just throw up a hammock and a tarp and call it a night. This day in particular, I walked from St. Ignace to Brevoort. It was about a 21, 24-mile walk that day. And the Mackinac Bridge is still in sight. It's a foggy, cold, chilly morning, and you could just see the bridge starting to disappear off in the distance as I'm walking. And before you knew it, it's just myself, the road, and no shit, the Lake Michigan. That was it. So in my head, in my heart, I'm like, this is it. This is what I signed up for. I don't know anybody. I don't know where I'm going to sleep. I don't know where I'm going to eat. But I'm going to trust that everything's going to work out. And so those first 3 miles, the bridge was disappearing. It was still raining, downpouring. And then about 4 miles before the Brevoort Bridge, which is an 80-year-old bridge that had never been worked on. It is old, it's crumbling, it's concrete, small. But lo and behold, they were closing the bridge that day to do maintenance. So about 4 miles before the bridge, there's a state trooper who's detouring everybody about 43 miles around the bridge. So if you're driving, no big deal. If you're walking, that's another 2 days on my trip. And so I get to the state trooper, and he was pretty cool. He was like, man, looks like you're just enjoying life, doing your thing. He had no idea what I was doing. He's like, looks like you're just going for a walk and going for a stroll. And they haven't started work on the bridge yet, so you should be okay. So I'm thankful for it. Thank God. All right, awesome. So the 4 miles between that state trooper and the bridge itself, and then the 12 miles after the bridge, I didn't see a single soul. I didn't see another car. I didn't see another person. I didn't see anything except for seagulls. And Lake Michigan, the rocks, the road, and that was it. And that was my first real lonely moment. You could say lonely, but I call it serene, desolate, a moment of tranquility. And I'll share with you what most of my day looked like. And so that's all I heard all day. It was just the sound of the rain, the wind, the waves. It was so peaceful, so serene. And I share this with you because I call it the most serene moment of my life. I felt so at peace. And talking about refueling your tank, if you're in love with the outdoors and love just getting outside for a walk, man, embrace that. Encourage others to do the same because, we all have our ways of finding serenity. But I tell you what, like being outside in moments like this, there's nothing like it. So, which brings me to my second week of the walk, roaming God's country. And I say that not to make this religious, but anybody in the UP will tell you they call it God's country. They take pride in the UP. They call it their own state, their own country. They have their own currency. I don't think they can do anything with it, but they have it. But they are in love with the UP, and I can see why. It's beautiful up there. Pictured rocks, Porcupine Mountains, the waterfalls. It's just, there's so much beautiful scenery up there. And so this was one of my favorite stretches of the walk, of course, because it was just so quiet, but just so, and it was also after Labor Day, so all the travelers were all gone, and there was like nobody really out there. Anybody who saw me walking was once again like, who's this guy? What is he doing? The day I got to Davenport that same day. I did get into town, and there was one tiny little restaurant/motel that was open. And I walk in with my pack, and of course, the few people that were in there all turn around to see who is this guy again. And there was about a longer table of about 15, 16 senior citizens all around this table, retirees, of course, and all of them just slowly, turned to see who's at the door, and I'm standing there with my pack on, and I'm paying for the hotel room, and all of a sudden, one of the little ladies, she waves her finger. She's like, you're going somewhere. And I'm like, and all of her friends laugh at her, like, yeah, he's going somewhere, right? She's like, no, I saw you on News 9 and 10. You're walking around the lake. I said, yes, ma'am, I am. So they were all sweet and fun to talk to for a few minutes. So then I went back to my room, and normal routine was to go change over, shower, take off all my bandages, and then go get some food, and it was Taco Tuesday, so I had to get back over there. So I get over there, and the table was all gone, but they paid for my dinner that night. I know, I'm gonna cry, dang it. But they were so sweet. So I made my way over to Escanaba, and then, which brings me to week 3, crossing from the UP into Wisconsin. And so, just before getting to Menominee, which is that last town right at the border, some folks in the VA actually reached out to ask if they could get me enrolled and have me come in for a checkup, make sure I was doing okay. Because at that point, I'd been, we're on week 3 now of just walking. Stubborn me. If I am feeling any aches or pains, I'm not telling anybody about it. I'm not advertising it. I'm fine. And they know better. So they were like, we encourage you to come in and get a checkup, which I did. So I got to the VA there in Menominee, and they already had the paperwork ready to go because I'd given them the necessary information. And everybody they were sweet, they were kind, and actually I still talk to them today. We stay in contact on social media. And then I go through the checkup, and towards the end, they're like, hey, Dr. So-and-so is here, our psychiatrist. You want to talk to her? And I thought their intention was to have me get some feedback from her about how to talk to veterans about suicide. And it was a trap. So I go in to talk to the doctor, and we're just having nonchalant, easygoing conversation, small talk, and we're talking about this trip, and next thing I know, we're talking about me, how does that make you feel kind of stuff. And I opened up a little bit, and I ended up talking about, because up to this point, keep in mind too, I had done about 20 or so interviews between radio, social media, and the news and whatnot, and I keep talking about this cause, which is so important. I'm so passionate about it, and it's near and dear to my heart. And I was putting my heart in check every day to make sure that no matter what happened, that the focus stayed on the cause. But the truth also was, like I had mentioned, that there were personal reasons for taking this trip as well. I needed to hit the reset button, and I needed my own healing to take place before I moved on to the next season of my life. And so I'm talking about this with her, and I'm also telling her about how, I feel the need to prove to everybody that I'm walking this many miles every day. Instagram story, Snap story, Facebook story, make sure I post a map so everyone can see like that I really did go this far in this amount of time and no one's questioning, and I'm battling all the naysayers that are saying, what is walking changing, so on and so forth. And I'm talking to her, and as I'm talking, I'm starting to realize like how selfish some of the things I was saying sounded. And she didn't say, how does that make you feel, but in a roundabout way she kind of did. And she helped me realize that I gave myself this mission. I created it, I signed up for it, and I gave it to myself. This mission to bring awareness to such an epidemic, and I'm stressing out over nothing. Even if people don't believe that I walked around Lake Michigan, or I really did this, and that, and the other, or I really am making an impact, all that matters is people that are affected in a positive way. That's all that matters. I don't owe anybody else an explanation. I don't need to sit there on social media and get into fights with keyboard warriors over whether or not, this really happened or this really made a difference. That's not what the point is. And I say that to especially you students out there who, find yourselves stressing out and crying when you don't receive the grade that you want. Just be encouraged that when you are stressed out, that it's not the end of the world. You're going to be okay. Like, just keep working hard, doing your best, putting forth the effort. This career path that you've chosen, you've chosen it for a reason. You're passionate about it. You've got desire to make a difference. And that's all that matters. Keep pushing and you'll be okay. So with that said, I made my way into Wisconsin, which was another checkpoint for me, because it's like, I'm in a new state. I just walked out of Michigan after 2 weeks. Made it into Green Bay. A couple of friends of mine actually were in town for the Packers game. My buddy Paul there, he was raised in Granville, moved to St. Louis to start a company, and for some reason, I don't know why, he's a diehard Packers and Wisconsin fan. But he made it there that weekend to see the game, watch the game, him and his wife, and reached out and hey, we've got an extra bed in our hotel room, you should hang out with us. And once again, another moment where it's things just worked out perfectly. Like, how perfect was it that they were in town for the game? So we got to catch up, and that was really cool. And then, as you can see there's some pretty amazing scenery out there with all the sunflowers, the fields of gold. For those of you that are too young, that's a Sting reference. Sting was, lead singer of the Police, the band, not the first responders. But funny story about this area, and I did get permission to tell the story. I was walking from Green Bay to Manitowoc that day, and it's about another 20-some mile walk. And I come up to this little place called Derry, Wisconsin. It's a village of about maybe 300 people at the most. And you can picture the scenery, a few buildings, one intersection with a light, and that was about it. And at this point in the day, I'm looking for somewhere to eat. It's about lunchtime. I'm starting to okay, what's going to happen today? What am I going to find? And I find this little shack with a window on the front and your typical Bud Light and Natty Light signs. And I'm walking by, and I've got headphones in, and I'm like, that's an F no. I'm going to keep walking. It just didn't look right. So I keep walking. Like I said, I had headphones on. I'm listening to music. I'm just kind of cruising along. And next thing I know, there's this guy running next to me. And I take my headphones off. I'm like, what's going on, man? How's it going, And he's out of breath. And he's like, hey, man, what the hell are you doing? So I laughed, and I was like, well, I'm on this little mission. I'm walking around Lake Michigan to promote veteran suicide awareness. And he's like, no shit, man. He's like, I just threw a Frisbee at you from that bar over there, trying to get your attention. And he did. He was way off, so clearly he was drunk. He's like, my friends and I saw you through the window of our bar, and we want to know if you want to come in and hang out with us and have a drink and have lunch. So I'm like, okay, sure. So I turn back around. I walk into this bar, and I kid you not, it is about 30, 40 decked out, face-painted jerseys, cheese heads, Green Bay Packer fans that go ballistic when I walk in because they got my attention. And so the gentleman tells them what I'm doing, and they pass the hat around, raised like $200, and then bought drinks and lunch, and we just watched the Packers game for the afternoon, and just kind of talked and stuff and hung out. So that was a lot of fun. And then, of course, I finished my walk which, side note, when you're walking 20, 30 miles a day, your tolerance level goes way, way, way low. So there might have been a few times where I don't think I would have passed a test. But I say that, but I mean, I held it together. I was doing just fine, but it was a lot of fun. So the morning I left Milwaukee, it's about 9 in the morning. I'm south of town. And like I said before, a lot of people would see the pack when I'm walking inside of the road and be like, hey, there's a guy. And this gentleman right here, Matt, was one of those people. So in Wisconsin, there wasn't as much coverage of the story as there was here in Michigan. But there was a few outlets that did reach out, and Matt happened to catch one of them. He was working third shift that night. I was actually headed home from work. I'm just starting my trip for the day. Pardon me. And he has to stop and tell me his story. And this guy had seen the lowest of the lows. He talk about, to put it nicely, bad luck. He had to go through a family member that had committed suicide, a neighbor that had recently committed suicide, another family member that had just a week before attempted suicide. He himself was going back and forth contemplating suicide, and amidst other things that he was struggling with. And this guy, like, I'm smiling in the picture, but like this guy really like affected me. It made an impact on my heart as well. And we still stay in contact today on Facebook, and we still catch up once in a while, make sure that we're doing all right. But a few days later, I'm in my hotel room, and I already don't sleep well at night. I don't know how many of you can relate, but I'm a terrible night sleeper. But when that happens, I have to stay productive. Either I write, I read, play some music, practice some music, whatever the case is. And a couple nights later, I'm in my hotel room. It's like 3 in the morning. I can't sleep. And I knew something was on my heart to put down on paper. So this came about. I'll give you a moment to read that. So I wrote that because everything that he had told me was still weighing heavy on my heart, as well as the other stories that I had encountered up until this point. But so moving along, it's a dairy joke because it's Wisconsin. Made it through Sheboygan, Port Washington, Milwaukee, like I said, Kenosha, down in Illinois. And finally made it down to Chicago, where I finally took a full day off. And going back to like stressing myself out over this mission, I kind of felt that pressure to make sure that I hit this many miles in this amount of time. And so like for a minute there, I just kind of refused the idea of taking a day off, even though my legs and feet were hating me up until that point and begging me to take a day off. So I finally did in Chicago, where I was able to take a break, meet up some friends in town that I knew, have some dinner, had a little me time, just met some friends, met this pup who, believe it or not, he's only a few months old in that picture. He is a tank, huge dog. And I wish I would have brought the video, but I could not. I'm sitting there on the stairs, but he comes up and charges me, and I couldn't sit up straight because he just was like towering over me like a cannon. Side note, the geese in Chicago are jerks. They'll bite your feet. And then they brought me to my 5th week. And everybody asks me, one of the questions I get the most is like, what was it like walking through Chicago? And truthfully, Chicago was not that bad. It was beautiful. We walked the Lakeshore Trail. It was easy going. Everyone is doing their own thing, minding their own business. They don't care about a guy walking around with a pack. It was Gary, Indiana that was the challenge. So I get to Gary, Indiana, and I don't know how many of you have ever visited Gary, but it's had its share of challenges. I get to the west side of the city, and I stayed the night. the next morning, I thought it would have been wise to take an Uber across town. And so I did that to the east side before I started my day, and I'm with the Uber driver, and we're having a conversation, and he tell him what I'm doing, because he saw the pack, and he's like, so who told you that Gary's a bad place to go, to walk? And I was like, mother effer, like the whole country knows that Gary is a tough place to walk. And he busts out laughing, and he's like, yeah, they're right. So I made it through Indiana, Michigan City, Bridgman, St. Joseph, and the goal that end of that week was to make it back to my hometown of Holland, which I did. And so after 31 days and 595 miles, I made it back to Pierre, Michigan. I made it back to Michigan. I'm sorry, I just read the sign. Made it back to Michigan. And I'll never forget this moment because I'm on the Red Array Highway. I'm walking, and I can just see that tiny Pierre, Michigan sign off in the distance. As soon as I saw that sign, I broke down. I'm a transparent person. I'm not afraid to tell you. I cried, But to make it all that way around and to be back in my home state, to make it that far, it was just another reminder that, with a little bit of faith and perseverance, that, I was able to, make it that far. And it was just a surreal moment for me personally. So, with that said, the other thing I'm always asked about with this story is the story of my friend that I made on the trip. It was Saturday morning in South Haven, and my good friends at Fox 17 were coming out to do a little interview, and it had been thunderstorming that night for 12 hours straight or so. It felt like it. Thunderstorms, rain, and it's still dark outside. We're on the corner at my starting point for the day. And we're talking, just kind of getting ready to go live, and I hear this little meow. And at first it didn't register with me, but I'm like, Savannah, did you hear a meow? And she's like, yeah, I think I did. And we're looking, it's dark out, and I see this tiny little wet fur ball hiding behind the grass. And as I approached him, he kind of cowered down, trying to hide. But I picked him up. All I had was a safety vest in that first moment. So that's why it looks like an angel in the picture, but it's safety vest. Ran across the street to the gas station, grabbed a whole bag of Meow Mix and a coffee lid to feed him. And then he sat in my pouch, my rain jacket that whole day. And he, as you can see, he's passed out. He was tired. He was looking for somewhere to hide. And he's my little buddy. He's all mine now. He's kind of a jerk sometimes, but that's cats for you. And I think I heard somebody say, what's his name? I named him Gulliver after the novel, Gulliver's Travels. So he's all mine. So with that said, at the end of the week, I made it to Holland. And I, on social media, I had invited people to come out and just walk with me as far as they wanted, whether it be 1 mile, 10 feet, or the whole way to Grand Haven that day. And my buddy Andrew, who's in the bottom left-hand corner, actually did walk with me that whole day. But you can see my parents there in the corner, some other Marine buddies, and then a crowd that came out in the rain to actually walk all that way. And I was so grateful for their support. They didn't have to come out in the rain. I would have been okay if they said, nah, but they came out. So, which brought me to the home stretch. From Grand Haven to Muskegon to Whitehall to Shelby, Pentwater, Ludington, all the way back to Manistee. And being that this was like the home stretch, I know all these towns well because I've been visiting them, my whole life, since I was a kid, for family time, vacations, friends, or whatever. So it was cool to see friends along the way, people coming out again. I had to make a stop at my favorite state park, of course, and visit Ludington. The gentlemen you see there in the bottom right-hand corner were all Vietnam vets that had served. And the one next to me on my right, that's Kevin, actually walked me from Grand Haven to Muskegon, and then Muskegon to Whitehall. And once again, so many good stories. If you know veterans at all, there was no filter. So I heard all kinds of cool, funny stuff. But yeah, they were in it for the long haul that day. They didn't complain once. They were all about it. And of course, once again, it thunderstormed, but they had a good attitude, and they were all about it. So after 6 weeks, 810 miles, 42 days, finally made it back to Manistee. And you can see the crowd there that came out to walk with me. And I do feel bad because on social media I said, it was my final mile back to Manistee, and it was actually 4 miles. I knew that, but I didn't want to tell them that. But they all hung in there anyways. So yeah, and that picture right there on the right-hand side was my very last few steps to the beach. First responders, fire, police all came out with their American flags just to show their support. And that was it. There's so many stories I could tell around the trip. If I had the time, I would tell you. But and as you can see, the aftermath was just a lot of opportunities to come to share the story, talk with different news outlets, radio, social media, different podcasts, speak to legislators about this epidemic that we faced and what can be done. Also talk to them as well about the VA and some challenges that have been brought forth and concerns as well. But I'm just so grateful just to talk about this endeavor and these last few months. And if I'm being honest, talking with kids is the most fun, if I had my choice. Vets are fun too, but kids, they're open-minded. They're eager to hear about mostly the cat. Because I don't think they fully understand that there's what 110 miles really is. But I'm so happy to share the story with them. I did bring some facts and figures because I know we've got students here, and that's what you guys care about is facts and figures. Courtesy of the National Veteran Suicide Prevention Annual Report that the VA conducts every year. 45,390 American adults died from suicide in 2017. 6,139 of those were veterans. Compare that to 31,610 total, 5,700 being vets in 2005. And that's an increase of, sorry, I lost my spot. Pardon me. Backtrack. From 2005 to 2017, there was a 43.6% increase in suicide deaths among the general population. 6.1% of that increase was among veterans. In 2005, roughly 86.6 American adults died from suicide each day. By 2017, that number increased to 124.4 per day. In 2005, that was an average of 15.9 and increased to 16.8 by 2017. And as I mentioned earlier, it's roughly 22 per day now. Veterans aged 18 to 34 had the highest rate in 2017. That's 44.5 per 100,000. The rate increased by 76% from 2005 to 2017. The absolute number of suicides was highest among veterans aged 55 to 74 years old. They accounted for 38% of suicides in 2017, approximately 2,250. And that's mostly like the Vietnam era that I mentioned before. Men and women who have been hiding things for decades and still don't know how to pull that from within themselves and face those challenges. So the question is, and I do apologize for that glitch there, where can help be found for these veterans? I mentioned the Mission 22 organization earlier. They have a prominent presence in the military community. They do much nationwide for veterans and their families to help them find the support they need, whether it be different activities or seminars, conferences, all kinds of outings, whatever it takes to help them find their answers that they need to get through their challenges. They do a great job. That's mission22.com/ourcause. And of course, the Veterans Affairs offers plenty of resources as well. Our the office here in Wyoming, they do an incredible job. They're a little bit newer, but they have done a wonderful job of reaching out to veterans and helping them find the resources as well. National Veterans Foundation as well, they do, just like Mission 22, different seminars, classes, activities, and then there's a Wounded Warrior Project as well. Some of the local resources available that can be reached out to: Disabled American Veterans, the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars. They also have a lot of contacts that they can reach out to. If you're approached by a veteran that's struggling and you yourself don't know exactly where to find that resource or where to find help for them, if you reach out to American Legion or Veterans of Foreign Wars, they'll be able to point you in the right direction as well. So right there I have, if you want to stay connected, reach out. I do have a Facebook page still up for the walk. And I just still share not just the story, but also updates on what's going on in the military community, not just with suicide, but also other things as well. Look me up on Instagram if you'd like. If you want to reach out via email, that's right there as well. And if you do feel so inclined to contribute to a mission and cause, there's a GoFundMe as well. So this next year, I'm doing a little bit of traveling to reach out to different classrooms, organizations, and also looking to conduct different fundraising opportunities as well for veterans and their families this next year. So with that said, I have a small message to you folks, especially you students here today. Whatever your reason was for going into this field, never forget that reason. In the toughest moments where you find yourself wondering, why did I do this? Take heed to that small voice that reminds you of why you're here. Please never forget that there are unseen scars that lie deep and beyond the bruises, the lacerations, and the cuts that you'll encounter throughout your career. Remember that the patient in front of you is not just a number, not just a customer, not just a statistic, that they're a human being in combat, facing battles that you and I will not always be able to fathom or comprehend. After time, even if you don't feel the same fulfillment or that same warm and fuzzy feeling that you had when you first started your career, know that you're still providing love and care to a person that is in need. Even if you find yourself underestimating the job that you're doing, just know that it's still making a tremendous difference in the life of that veteran and their families as well. You may set out with the intention of changing the world, but be reminded that you have to move rocks before you can move boulders, and that you have to move boulders before you can move a mountain. Lastly, remember to show yourself some self-love, like I mentioned before. Refuel your own tank. You may have embarked on this career path with the intention of making an impact on your community and on the world around you, but without enthusiasm and passion and desire, it'll be that much harder to make that same impact. Loving other people isn't always going to be unicorns and rainbows. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. But if you retain that passion for making a difference, you'll be better prepared for that load that you'll take on, for the sacrifices that you'll encounter. If you don't take the time to refuel yourself, eventually you'll have nothing to give or less to give, and you'll find yourself falling apart, even breaking at times. But be encouraged that each and every single one of you is equipped to make a huge difference in the world, not just for veterans, but civilians alike. People of all backgrounds, all generations, all different kinds of stories. So with that said, I want to thank you all once again for letting me come out and talk to you and share a little bit about what I've been doing and what we've been doing. I say we because we built a platform and a community of people that care about this epidemic. It's not just one person doing this. It's a community of folks all around the country and all around the world that have latched onto this. So once again, thank you so much for letting me come out and talk to you today, and God bless. Thank you.
You guys hear me? Oh, good. We do have time for a few questions. I've got this fun cube that I get to throw at you guys. So does anyone want to start us off?
You can ask about the cat if you want to. I haven't announced it yet, but I do intend on doing a day walk at the end of April. And then I really want to take the trip again, but taking 6 weeks out of the year to do a walk when you're trying to pursue other endeavors like school and work and life, it's not easy. So I think at this point I'm looking at possibly doing a 2-week walk from Holland to Mackinac.
Will those be listed on your?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll be letting everybody and anybody know.
Throwing it out there, veteran Army, maybe collaborate with different agencies to bridge the awareness, and so that you're not.
Oh, absolutely.
I know women injured in combat would be interested, as well as
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate that feedback. Thanks.
This is a microphone?
Yeah, that's the microphone.
Not where I come from. Can you hear me, Travis?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, this is kind of a personal question, well, personal from my perspective. I still keep in contact with a group of the Marine moms. There's three of us here of the guys that you served with, and I know that a couple of your brothers from 124 Alpha Company are struggling a bit. And my own son, he seems to be doing okay, but you guys didn't see combat, did you? You weren't involved in combat?
We took, I think I can say this. We took primarily rocket fire and mortar fire in Afghanistan.
Okay.
Nothing, no close arms or small arms fire.
Okay, so my question is, can you just share with me as a Marine mom, what are some of the other stresses that you guys felt while you were over there that, you know, it wasn't like in Vietnam where there was a lot of close-up combat, but what other things happened or what other things did you go through that caused stress to the young men?
Absolutely. So when you're on deployment, or even in just the military in general, particularly on deployment overseas, men and women are leaving their homes for anywhere from 3, 6, 7 months to a year or so, away from their families, their jobs, their own personal goals. And especially for those that are in a combat situation, your head is always on a swivel, and you're trained not to trust anybody who's not wearing the same uniform that you're wearing, which of course was the case for us as well. And so like day in and day out, you're like I said, your head's on a swivel, you're paying attention to everything around you. Here, in small example, here in the States, you walk on the street, you see a piece of trash, you pick it up, throw it away. Over there, you're trained not to do that because that piece of trash could kill you. You know, a kid could kill you. A dog or a sheep could kill you. It doesn't matter. And so like, and then waking up every day knowing that this could be it. This could be my last day. This could be my last meal. You know, that realization kind of like sets in as well. And also for those not in combat as well, that are just overseas, while you're doing this job, the rest of the world is going on without you. Your families are, you know, you're missing graduations, birthday parties, celebrations, career changes, friends come and go, families come and go. In some situations, spouses move on. In some situations, kids forget about dad and they have to rekindle that relationship when they come back home. They may have had their heart set on a job when they came back, and that opportunity might not be there anymore. And so like for a lot of men and women that come back home, they still want to fulfill a purpose, and they still want to find their niche in this world, and they don't know how to find it. You know, and they're trying to find resources, and they're trying to find their way, and they're trying to find answers as to like what they're supposed to be doing in life now that they're out of the military. And I think that's one of the biggest stresses that comes with the territory, so to speak.
Anybody else?
I don't think Grace is not my middle name today. You know, I knew the other day. I think I was looking up a little bit about your mission and stuff before you came here, and you know, I realized we had more than just a couple friends in common. I was actually attached with 124 as part of the I&I staff over at Charlie during that time, so I probably saw you out in the field on a few occasions.
I'm sure, yeah.
But you know, you know, with now compared to say Vietnam when people came back then, people are coming back today, and you know, like you said, they have more support. They feel more welcome. There's a lot more resources out there. I know 124 has had, you know, within Alpha Company as well as others, have suffered and been part of that statistics over the last number of years. My question to you is, have you had the opportunity to go back to 124 and share some of your message, or the Returning Warrior workshops they hold when people return? Have you had that opportunity to share that with them?
Not yet, but I have been in contact with some of the staff there and look forward to doing so.
But keep up the good work.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right.
One. I was given a pair in St. Joseph, and I feel bad 'cause I didn't use them. But as a shoe company down there gave me a pair of shoes, but I was determined just to use one pair, and I still have them. They don't stink or anything like that; they're clean. But the plan is to just to hold on to them as a, I guess, a little memento for the trip. Yeah, they did take a beating though. Thanks, Nike.
One last question. Oh. Okay, we have time for one more. I keep you guys 2 extra minutes.
I was just gonna say, your feet, I mean, what did you do for your feet when you got done? Because, I mean, you said, I mean, I was a soldier and I know, I mean, you said one pair of shoes,
If you want,
then, you know, like, did you get a massage, did you get Reiki, did you
I wasn't gonna say anything, but yeah.
pedicure, massage, and all that?
Well, actually, when I was in Chicago, it's funny because I was in Chicago, I took a day off that morning because I wanted to watch some football. I didn't want to miss out on football, so that morning I woke up a little bit early and did get taken care of. And for me, I carry my stress in my legs and my back, and I did not realize how much pain I was in until she went to work on it. And I was trying of course, I'm trying my best to like be tough and like, but I was in pain. It hurt so bad. Feet were hurt in the first week, but then after that, it was okay because if you want the honest truth, and I couldn't say this to the news outlets, my feet were fine. It was the chafing that was a problem. So I had to figure out 5 or 6 different ways to not only prevent further damage, but also heal the wounds and bandage myself so I wasn't waddling like a duck on the side of the road. So like the day I was in Traverse City, the news reporter came out there and she walked with me for 3 miles in heels, bless her soul. Followed me for 3 miles, and I told her, I said, Rachel, just so you know, this is the end of my day. I'm hurting pretty bad. You know, be kind to me and don't like send footage of me like waddling. And so sure enough, the next day I saw the clip and I'm just... And so the joke I made with my family, or my friends and family, was like, yeah, people were like watching this clip and seeing this guy walk, and they're like, him? But yeah.
Somebody who was diagnosed with PTSD, who also has a father that's diagnosed with PTSD, what would you say is the best method if they don't want to get help? Like, my father is 60 years old, he's been in Vietnam, Desert Storm, things like that he doesn't want to talk about, but he also doesn't want to get help. I've been to Afghanistan twice, lost 2 guys over there, and I'm getting help now, but it took me years before I decided to get help. What would you suggest to somebody who has a family member or something like that that's experiencing that doesn't want to get the help that they need?
Well, first off, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here and for staying. Second of all, never underestimate your presence and what it means to them. You can only help somebody so much that doesn't want to receive the help, but if you can at least make those resources available to him, like maybe phone numbers, websites, other friends, maybe recruit some other friends that I can relate to what he's going through. And obviously, as you can imagine, if you keep pushing and pressing, it'll make things worse at some point. But if you can just maintain a presence in his life and recruit some other friends, maybe his own age or your own age, that can relate and encourage each other to be around him a little bit, that might help him pull out of that puddle, so to speak. and encourage them to open up one day. Absolutely, man. We'll talk more afterwards.
All right. Thank you so much for your questions. We're just about out of time. Travis, can you please share with us what's one thing we can all do when we leave this auditorium today to make a difference?
You know, it's like I mentioned before, there's no all-encompassing way to and from suicide. It comes in all shapes and forms and sizes, through the front door, the back door, and it could be because of trauma, it could be because diet and exercise, it could be whatever reason that people encounter suicidal tendencies. So with that said, the cure isn't always concrete. It's not always just a pill or just one solution. But what I can tell you is that, like, starting off with the little things will go a long way. Planting seeds in each other's lives. So often we're afraid to just be kind to one another because it feels weird or might be misinterpreted. Or like, how many times, and don't be afraid to admit this, how many times do you find yourself walking down the hallway or down the street, somebody's coming towards you that you don't know, and you find yourself window shopping to an empty storefront just to avoid making eye contact with that person because you don't know how to say, oh, hey, or hi, or whatever. You know, start with things like that, like every day, once a day, practice just one act of kindness. Step out of your comfort zone and say, hey, how's it going? Hey, I like your smile. Or like, hey, you know, you've made my day a little bit better. You know, whatever the situation is and how well you know that person, of course. But don't be afraid to just be kind and start out with those little things, planting seeds. Let somebody else do the watering and feeding if you don't have the time, but just planting the seed will go such a long ways and helping us overcome this epidemic. And aside from that, you know, just be aware of the resources available, and we'll knock this epidemic into the ground.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Sure.